Listen closely, because what is being spoken here is not loud like thunder, but quiet like poison entering clear water. There is a force that does not break doors, yet enters homes. It does not shout, yet it destroys peace. It is called envy. And when envy takes root inside a family, it does not burn the house at once. It slowly removes warmth from every heart inside it. You may still sit together at the same table, but the spirit of togetherness is already gone. There are hidden signs when envy begins to destroy a family. The first sign is silent comparison. One member begins to measure another's success, beauty, or luck not with admiration but with discomfort. Even a small victory of one becomes a heavy weight for another. Joy is no longer shared equally, it becomes selective. The second sign is disguised praise. Words sound sweet but carry a hidden edge. "You are so lucky," is said not with joy but with bitterness wrapped in politeness. Over time, even compliments start to feel heavy. The third sign is withdrawal of happiness. When envy grows, a person stops celebrating others naturally. Birthdays, achievements, or good news no longer bring warmth. Instead, they create distance. A smile is offered but not felt. The fourth sign is unnecessary criticism. Small mistakes are magnified. Good actions are ignored. The mind begins to search for faults, not because they are important, but because envy needs justification. The fifth sign is comparison within blood. Siblings begin to compare. Cousins become rivals. Even parents may unknowingly treat children differently, feeding silent competition instead of unity. The sixth sign is emotional distance in the same home. Conversations become shorter. Eye contact becomes less. Everyone starts living inside their own mental space, even if they share the same roof. The seventh sign is secret satisfaction in others' setbacks. This is one of the most dangerous signs. When someone in the family fails, there is no sadness in the heart of the envious one, only a quiet relief, as if balance has been restored. The eighth sign is resistance to support. Help is no longer natural. Advice is given with reluctance. Assistance feels like loss instead of love. The ninth sign is constant mental unrest. The envious mind never rests. Even in silence, it calculates who has more, who is ahead, who is praised more. Peace slowly disappears from within. And the 10th sign is the breaking of unity. Not always with arguments, but with gradual emotional separation. Family members still exist together physically, but their hearts no longer walk together. When these signs appear, it is not just relationships that are in danger, it is the very soul of the home. But there is a shield, a protection that does not require weapons, wealth, or power. It is the shield of awareness, gratitude, and inner discipline. The first layer of this shield is awareness. To see envy rising the moment it appears, before it becomes thought, before it becomes word. Just observing it weakens its power. The second layer is gratitude. When a heart becomes full of gratitude, envy finds no empty space to grow. Gratitude turns attention away from what others have and toward what already exists within one's own life. The third layer is rejoicing in others' success. This is not forced emotion, it is trained understanding. When another person rises, it does not mean you are falling. In truth, abundance does not reduce when shared, it multiplies in perception. The fourth layer is mindful speech. Words should be chosen like one chooses seeds, because every word planted in a family either grows harmony or grows distance. The fifth layer is inner stillness. A mind that is constantly comparing cannot be peaceful, but a mind that returns again and again to silence becomes strong enough to resist the pull of envy. When this shield is built, even envy that arises outside cannot enter inside. A family is not broken in one day. 'Tis weakened slowly, first in thoughts, then in words, then in feelings, and finally in connection. But the same is also true for healing. Unity is restored the same way, slowly, gently, consciously. Where envy divides, awareness heals. Where comparison poisons, gratitude restores. Where pride isolates, humility reconnects. And in the end, the strongest home is not the one without problems, but the one where hearts choose again and again not to be enemies to each other. Envy destroys family unity silently. It doesn't cause sudden conflict, but slowly creates emotional distance, comparison, and loss of warmth among family members. Envy destroys family unity in a way that is not loud or immediate, but slow and almost invisible. It begins like a small seed in the mind, often unnoticed, and grows quietly through repeated thoughts of comparison. A person does not always realize when it starts. It may begin when they see another family member being praised, receiving success, or experiencing happiness. Instead of feeling shared joy, something inside tightens. That slight discomfort is the first whisper of envy, and if it is not observed carefully, it begins to shape how a person sees others within the same home. In a family, people live very close to each other, not only physically but emotionally connected through daily life, shared history, and responsibilities. This closeness should naturally create warmth and support, but when envy enters, it turns closeness into tension. A brother may begin to compare his progress with his sibling. A cousin may silently measure their achievements against another. Even between parents and children, comparison can form without intention. At first, these thoughts remain unspoken, but they start to influence behavior in subtle ways. A smile becomes less genuine. A conversation loses its softness. Even small achievements of another person start to feel heavy instead of joyful. What makes envy so destructive is that it rarely appears as open hostility in the beginning. Instead, it hides behind normal interactions. A person may still speak kindly, still sit together at meals, still participate in family gatherings, but internally something has changed. The heart is no longer relaxed. It is watching, calculating, comparing. This interactivity creates emotional distance even when physical distance does not exist. The family may appear united from outside, but inside the bonds are weakening. As envy grows, it begins to replace natural happiness with discomfort. When one member of the family succeeds, it should bring pride to others, but envy distorts this response. The success of one becomes a reminder of what another feels they lack. Instead of celebration, there is silence. Instead of encouragement, there is hesitation. Over time, this lack of shared joy creates invisible walls. People stop sharing their victories openly because they can sense the reaction will not be warm. This silence itself deepens the separation. The most painful effect of envy in a family is that it changes perception. The person no longer sees others clearly, they see them through the lens of comparison. The same action that once felt normal now feels threatening or unfair. Even innocent words may be misunderstood. This distortion slowly poisons trust. Where there was once natural understanding, suspicion begins to grow. If this process is not interrupted, the family begins to lose its emotional foundation. Unity is not destroyed in one moment, it dissolves step by step. First comes comparison, then comes emotional withdrawal, then comes lack of support, and finally there is distance even in togetherness. People remain under the same roof, but their hearts no longer meet. This is why envy is so dangerous within families. It does not attack from outside, it grows from within relationships that are supposed to be the safest. And because it is so subtle, it often goes unnoticed until the warmth of the home has already begun to fade. Hidden signs of envy in families, these include silent comparison, disguised praise, unnecessary criticism, emotional withdrawal, and secret satisfaction in others' failures. When envy enters a family, it does not announce itself. It does not come with conflict at the beginning, nor does it immediately break relationships. Instead, it changes the emotional atmosphere slowly, like dust settling on a clean surface over time. People continue their daily routines, continue living under the same roof, but something essential begins to shift inside their hearts. The feeling of ease that once existed in simple interactions becomes slightly heavy, slightly cautious, and slowly less genuine. At first, envy appears in thoughts that seem harmless. A person may notice that another family member is being appreciated or progressing in life, and instead of feeling naturally happy, a small inner comparison begins. This comparison is subtle, almost automatic. Why not me? Or why them more than me? These thoughts do not always stay conscious, but they influence emotions in the background. Without realizing it, the mind starts measuring every situation, every achievement, every compliment. Over time, this creates an invisible competition within the family, even if no one openly agrees to it. In a healthy family environment, one person's success naturally becomes shared joy. But when envy takes root, that shared joy becomes uneven. Some celebrate with sincerity while others feel inner discomfort. This creates a split in emotional response. The same event produces two opposite reactions, happiness in one heart and heaviness in another. This imbalance is where distance begins. Not physical distance, but emotional separation that grows quietly. As this continues, communication begins to change. Conversations become shorter, less open, and less expressive. People still talk, but they share less of what they truly feel. There is a fear, often unspoken, that expressing happiness or success might create jealousy, or expressing struggle might invite judgment. So instead, people start hiding parts of their lives. This hiding does not protect the relationship, it weakens it further because honesty is slowly replaced by caution. Another important change that envy brings is the rise of selective attention. A person influenced by envy begins to notice more flaws in the other person and less of their good qualities. Small mistakes are remembered longer, while positive actions are quickly ignored. This creates a distorted image in the mind, where the other family member is no longer seen as a whole person, but as a competitor or comparison point. Once this distorted perception forms, even neutral actions can be misinterpreted. Over time, emotional warmth decreases. Helping each other starts to feel like a burden instead of natural behavior. Support becomes reluctant. Even kind actions may carry hidden emotional resistance. In some cases, a person may even feel a quiet sense of satisfaction when another experiences difficulty. Not because they are truly bad, but because envy has temporarily shifted their emotional balance. The most damaging part of this process is that it feels normal while it is happening. Families do not usually notice the exact moment when connection begins to weaken. There is no single incident that marks the break. Instead, it is a gradual fading of closeness, like color slowly leaving a fabric. By the time it becomes obvious, a lot of emotional distance has already formed. Yet this is not permanent. The same way envy grows quietly, it can also be reduced quietly. When awareness returns, when gratitude is practiced sincerely, gratitude returns to the heart. And when people begin to consciously appreciate each other again, The emotional tone of the family can shift back toward unity. But without this awareness, envy continues its silent work, turning closeness into distance without ever making noise. Envy replaces love with competition. Family members start measuring each other's success and happiness instead of supporting and celebrating one another. When envy settles inside a family, it does not remain a simple emotion. It gradually becomes a way of thinking, a lens through which everything is seen and interpreted. At first, it is small and almost unnoticeable, but over time it begins to shape reactions, decisions, and even memories. A person may not realize that their inner world has changed, yet their behavior slowly reflects a growing imbalance. What once felt natural, supporting, celebrating, and understanding, starts to feel mixed with hesitation and inner resistance. One of the strongest effects of envy is that it quietly changes the meaning of success within a family. Instead of being a shared victory, success starts to feel like a comparison point. When one member achieves something, it should normally bring encouragement and pride to others. But when envy is present, that same achievement becomes a silent question in the mind of another. What about me? Or why not my turn? This shift may not be spoken aloud, but it changes the emotional response completely. The joy that should have been shared becomes divided. As this continues, the emotional language of the family begins to weaken. Words are still spoken, but their meaning changes. Compliments may still be given, but they lose sincerity. Advice may still be offered, but it carries hidden judgment. Even silence becomes meaningful, often filled with unspoken comparison. In such an environment, trust begins to erode slowly. People stop expressing their true feelings openly because they sense that honesty may not be received with warmth. Instead of connection, there is caution. Another deep impact of envy is the way it affects memory and perception. The mind influenced by envy tends to remember negative moments more strongly than positive ones. A small mistake becomes memorable, while many good actions are easily forgotten. This selective memory creates an unbalanced picture of others within the family. Over time, a person may begin to believe that another family member is consistently unfair, more successful, or more favored, even if reality is more balanced. This distorted perception feeds further emotional distance. Envy also affects cooperation within the home. In a healthy family, helping each other is natural and without hesitation. But when envy grows, assistance may start to feel like a loss instead of an act of love. A person may hesitate before offering help, not because they lack ability, but because something inside feels uncomfortable. This hesitation weakens the natural flow of support that keeps families strong. Slowly, people begin to rely more on themselves and less on each other, even for small things. Perhaps the most subtle damage envy causes is internal restlessness. The mind becomes constantly active, comparing progress, status, and attention. Even in peaceful moments, there is no true peace inside. This constant mental activity creates stress that is not always visible but deeply felt. A person may appear calm on the outside while experiencing inner dissatisfaction on the inside. This unrest affects relationships because a restless heart cannot easily give calmness to others. If this pattern continues unchecked, the family slowly loses its emotional unity. People remain connected by name and space, but not by feeling. The bond that once felt natural becomes fragile. However, this process is not irreversible. The moment awareness returns, change becomes possible. When a person begins to observe their own comparisons, they are engaging in self-reflection and self-evaluation. When gratitude replaces silent competition and when appreciation becomes a conscious choice, the direction can shift again. In this way, envy is not just an emotion, it is a process that reshapes relationships quietly over time. But with awareness and inner effort, the same process can be reversed, restoring the warmth that was slowly fading from within the family. The inner damage caused by envy, it leads to mental unrest, loss of peace, reduced communication, and breaking of emotional bonds even within the same home. When envy takes hold within a family, its final and most visible stage is not immediate conflict, but separation of hearts while bodies remain together. This is the point where emotional unity has already been weakened for a long time, and only the appearance of closeness is left. People may still share meals, attend gatherings, and speak politely, but the inner connection that once made those moments meaningful has faded. What remains is routine interaction without warmth. At this stage, even simple conversations begin to carry hidden weight. Words are no longer just words, they are analyzed, interpreted, and often misunderstood. A small comment can be taken as criticism. A neutral expression may feel like judgment. This happens because the mind, already influenced by envy, no longer receives information in a neutral way. It filters everything through comparison and emotional tension. As a result, misunderstandings become more frequent even when no harm is intended. One of the most painful effects of this stage is emotional silence. Family members begin to share less about their lives, not because nothing is happening, but because they no longer feel safe or fully understood. Success is shared carefully, sometimes even hidden to avoid discomfort in others. Struggles are also kept quiet to avoid judgment or lack of empathy. This creates a situation where people live parallel lives under the same roof, but without emotional transparency. The natural flow of sharing and understanding slowly disappears. As emotional silence increases, support also weakens. In earlier times, support was given automatically without thinking. But under the influence of envy, even helping others can feel emotionally complicated. A person may hesitate before offering help, or may do it in a way that lacks sincerity. This change is subtle but significant because families are built on the foundation of mutual support. When that foundation weakens, everything above it becomes unstable. Another sign of this advanced stage is the rise of emotional isolation within the home. Individuals begin to retreat into their own thoughts and personal spaces. Even when physically present, their attention is elsewhere. They may spend more time alone, more time on external distractions, and less time engaging deeply with family members. This is not always intentional, it is often a natural response to emotional discomfort. When connection feels heavy, the mind seeks distance as relief. At the same time, envy creates an ongoing inner comparison that never truly stops. Even during moments of rest or peace, the mind continues measuring life against others. Who is doing better? Who is receiving more attention? Who is progressing faster? This constant mental activity prevents inner calm. Without calmness, patience decreases. Without patience, small issues start to feel larger than they are. This is how minor misunderstandings can escalate into lasting emotional gaps. The most concerning part of this stage is that people often believe this is normal. Because changes have happened slowly over time, the present condition feels natural compared to the past. They may not remember clearly how warm the relationships once were. This gradual forgetting is what makes envy so powerful. It does not destroy suddenly, it replaces slowly until the new emotional state feels like reality. Yet even at this stage, repair is still possible. The process that created distance can also be reversed through conscious effort. When individuals begin to recognize their own comparisons, when they actively practice appreciation instead of judgment, they begin to see themselves in a more positive light. And when they choose to reconnect through honest communication, the emotional structure of the family can begin to heal. The return of unity does not happen instantly, just as its loss did not happen instantly. It requires consistent awareness and gentle rebuilding of trust. But the moment even one heart decides to break the cycle of envy, the possibility of restoration begins. The protective shield against envy, awareness, gratitude, mindful speech, rejoicing in others' success, and inner stillness help prevent and heal the effects of envy. When a family begins to recover from the silent influence of envy, the change does not appear dramatic at first. There are no sudden transformations, no instant healing of relationships. Instead, the shift begins internally within awareness. A person starts to notice their own thoughts more clearly. They begin to recognize moments of comparison not as truth but as mental habits. This simple recognition is the first step toward breaking a cycle that may have been active for a long time. As awareness grows, gratitude slowly returns to the heart. At first it may feel forced or intentional, but over time it becomes more natural. A person begins to notice what they already have instead of focusing on what others possess. This change in attention is powerful because envy survives on constant comparison, and gratitude weakens that foundation. When attention moves away from competition and toward appreciation, the emotional pressure inside begins to soften. In this process, communication within the family also begins to shift. Words become more thoughtful and less reactive. Instead of speaking from comparison or judgment, people start speaking from understanding. Even small changes in tone can make a difference. A simple conversation that once carried tension may begin to feel lighter. It is not that all problems disappear, but the way they are discussed becomes more respectful and less emotionally charged. Another important part of healing is the return of genuine celebration. When one family member achieves something, others begin to consciously participate in that joy again. At first, this may require effort, especially if envy was strong in the past. But with time, celebrating others becomes easier and more natural. This shared happiness slowly rebuilds emotional bridges that were weakened. Each moment of sincere appreciation acts like a repair in the structure of the relationship. Along with this, emotional openness starts to return. People begin to share more honestly about their lives without fear of judgment or comparison. Success is no longer hidden, and struggles are no longer carried alone. This openness is essential because it restores trust. When individuals feel safe enough to be authentic, the emotional distance between them naturally decreases. The home begins to feel more connected again, not just physically, but emotionally. However, healing is not a straight path. Even during recovery, old patterns of thought may occasionally return. A moment of comparison may arise, or an old feeling of discomfort may reappear. The difference now is awareness. Instead of being controlled by these thoughts, individuals begin to observe them and let them pass. This ability to witness without reacting is what prevents envy from regaining control. Over time, the family atmosphere gradually changes. Conversations become more relaxed. Support becomes more natural. There is less emotional tension in everyday interactions. People begin to feel more comfortable simply being around each other. The home, which may have once felt divided internally, starts to feel unified again in spirit. What is most important in this transformation is consistency. Healing does not depend on one moment of realization, but on repeated choices. Choosing understanding over judgment, choosing gratitude over comparison, choosing connection over isolation. These small decisions made again and again slowly rebuild what was weakened. In the end, the return of harmony is not about perfection. It is about awareness replacing blindness and connection replacing comparison. When envy loses its influence, what remains is the natural warmth of family life, the kind of warmth that was always there, only covered for a time by misunderstanding and inner struggle.